And here we have another game between Agarihara and Hrae, who I'll refer to as Hrae, who's playing the blue Protoss on spot number 6 up against Agarihara, who's playing the purple Terran on spot number 7. And as we saw in the previous game, Agari came out on top, and now they have switched races. Agari was playing the Protoss, also on spot number 7. Hrae was situated on spot number 3. And Hrae proved to not be good enough to survive the drops that Agarihara was throwing at him. Now we will see if Hrae is good enough to do the same to Agari, or if Agari is better than him and able to, whether Agari will be able to survive whatever Hrae is planning on throwing his way this game. And Agari starts off with the barracks on the 8-10, followed by a depot on 9-10, whereas Hrae starts off with the 8-9 pylon that is just finished, and he's waiting for that 400 minerals to throw down a nexus right to his other nexus to boost his economy in the mid game and perhaps also the early game, although the cost of probes also eats up a little bit of your minerals in terms of options and what you can spend it on in the early game. There is the forge, so he's planning on going for the very early choke without even making a single. Oh wait, there is the gateway, but the gateway will finish after the forge does. Let me just open this window so you can see the forge. There is an SCV scouting for Agari. Agari is staying on 2 barracks, believing and trusting his own ability to micro, but also maybe believing in the fact that Hrae might not play a very offensive early game. So either he completely read the enemy, or he is a very confident player. There is the Marine. It's gonna scout the front of Hrae, and that cannon is definitely gonna go down to the Marine. So he throws down a second cannon, and he's targeting the Marine with his probe now. The Marine taking some damage, but the probe taking way more damage than the Marine does, and the Marine teals the probe, and now he's pulling back, and there is another second Marine. And now he loses his second probe, and the other Marine is now walking around, and it dies eventually, but 2 more Marines are coming in. And he's lost 3 probes now, but the cannon does finish. And Agari decides to pull back, knowing that he cannot get his Marines inside the base of Hrae. This probe just moving up to the side, scouting the map. Well, actually, he already knows where Agari is. He knows he cannot walk his probe into the base of Agari. So just going to keep that probe there as a proxy probe and maybe build a proxy base whenever he needs one. And there's the cybernetics core. Second nexus is finished. 2 cannons at the choke. And he still had his Marines rallied to the choke. And in the meantime, he has started off with 2 command centers and a late barracks. He's no longer making depots because his need for a supply will be filled and met by these 2 CCs that he's adding on, and the CC will finish just about the time when he needs it. Still pumping Marines, and now we have 3 gas going for Hrae. Which one is finished and 2 are under production, and there is a pylon. Might have been a nexus, you never know. They all look the same when they're spawning. There's a Citadel of Dune. And there is no robotics facility out yet, so he is going for... I'm curious to see what he's going to do, because it seems like he's going for a very quick Dark Templars. If he adds some more gateways, we will know that he's going for a very quick mass zealot with lags, but that's not something we commonly see in Korea. So we're just gonna have to wait and see, but I am pretty sure that he's gonna throw out a Citadel of... Oh, there's the robotics facility. And we might be seeing a Templar's Archive. No, he throws down a... Yeah, there's the Zealot lags. Just the things he's doing seem to be a little bit jumbled around. Don't often see it in this, done in this order. And Agarihara building a choke. There's the first depot off the wall for his choke. There is the factory. Now just now finished up. Machine shop being added on. It's got 2 scans. Has not used the scans yet. The scans is both just finished. So we can expect him to see the entire base of Hrae, and there it is. He sees the entire base of Hrae. As he sees the entire base, although he does not see this side. He did see that, but I don't think he clicked on it. Maybe he did. And you can see the Templar's Archive being thrown down, but maybe he's not looking. But I assume that he knows that Templar's Archive has come down, and I assume he knows that there is a robotics facility out for Hrae. Now he's added 2 more gateways. He's going to ramp up his Zealot production. And there's robotic support bay, but I am rather curious to see exactly what strategy he'll be going for. He's moving his Zealots out. He's going to try to do a little bit of harass on the wall that Agarihara is building. But given that he cannot walk through, and given that the Marines are completely safe and can stim, he pulls back his Zealots. And he's going to wait for his tack to finish up. There is a storm upgrade has started. Shuttle speed has started. He's got a little bit of excess gas going there for how far into the game this is. And he's going to try to drop Zealots over the wall. But Agarihara throws his scans out, and maybe he saw it, maybe he didn't. He scanned the choke, and Hrae didn't manage to pull back his shuttle. The shuttle dies. 4 Zealots die as casualties to the crash, and there's the starport, the second factory. The wall is finished. The turret at the wall to detect Dark Templars or shuttles trying to fly over. And Agarihara is pretty much just building his entire base completely untouched by Hrae, and Hrae, whatever Hrae has been trying to do has not been working as of yet. And I assume that is because the order of his build seemed really weird, although he does have quite quick Templars out compared to the other build that we usually see, which is 2 gateways, a nexus, and then 2 robotic facilities and a Citadel of the Dune. But the switch up in order, I'm not sure if it's going to be worth it, because when you're this close to the Terran, the Terran can throw down tanks on the hill and pretty much zone you out of your own base, getting control over this entire portion that the hill gives access to, and it's very hard to fight against the hill. So here are 2 starports coming down for Hrae. He really needs those Corsairs to fly his shuttles in, and a second robotic facility. He pulls back this shuttle. No damage, no action as of yet, and it's already 8 minutes into the game. And in my honest opinion, the more time you give a Terran, the harder it becomes to get a dent into that impenetrable wall that the Terran can construct. And there is way too many turrets, and he gets out a single Zealot and a single Templar, but the Templar kills all of the Zealots, and I mean the Marines. There's a total of 12 Marines that went down. The medic barely survives the storm, and the Templar are now dying after heroically killing 12 Marines. But this is way too many shuttles to fly into, and the shuttle dies too. And the tank dies. You kill the tank and a medic. That's pretty good for a single Zealot to do, although it was 2 Zealots, but definitely not worth it considering he flew in a shuttle and a Corsair filled with 2 Templars and 2 Zealots. Now he's going to try again with 2 Corsairs, but now there's an entire row. There will be 10 turrets able to fire on the shuttles, and a Corsair goes down, and the shuttle does come out, and he killed 13 SCVs. Agarihara managed to pull off most of his SCVs, but another storm comes down, and this storm killed 9 SCVs, so we have a total of 23. Maybe less, not entirely sure. Short-term memory, I'm sorry, but I think about 22 SCVs of Agarihara went down. That is a very good gain for Hrae, although it is quite late into the game, and Agarihara has 2 additional CCs to replenish his SCV count. And he was trying again with 2 shuttles and 2 Corsairs, but both Corsairs go down, and the shuttle doesn't get to drop a single Templar as damage from the turrets and the Marines that got stimmed and focused down the shuttles take down the shuttles before a single Templar can come out. And then it's to wonder whether the Templar would have been able to storm in time, given there are so many tanks and Marines around there. And Agarihara has even made ghosts. And he's researching lockdown and ghost energy. And he's really planning on using lockdown to take down whatever Hrae's gonna throw at him. And Hrae very slowly building and adding onto his base. He's really still trying to go for drops, but he hasn't been able to do any damage with his drops. Although he did kill 20 SCVs, but those 20 SCVs lost will barely slow Agarihara down, given how far into building his base he already is and how many turrets he already has thrown down. And now Hrae is going for a different angle, and lockdown's coming down for a Corsair and don't do much, and he killed 14 SCVs with that storm, and the Zealot's cleaning out a couple of units but not doing much. And would have been really pretty to see the lockdown going on each, not every single shuttle individually, but he didn't manage to pull that off just in time and loses a couple of SCVs. And Hrae buys himself a little bit more time, because if he hadn't hit any of those things, I am pretty sure that Agarihara would have already been able to go for the counter push and the counter attack on Hrae, and Hrae does not have sufficient units or sufficiently sized base out to even fight against Agarihara's counter push. So if Hrae doesn't manage to deal more damage with his next couple of drops, Agarihara will most definitely win this game on a counter push. Because Hrae is still rather small, he flies in this drop and there's no lockdown. There comes a lockdown, and he locks down 2 shuttles, but the Templar still comes out, and Templar kills 8 SCVs. Most of the SCVs get pulled away to a gas in the north, far away from the CC, out of the range of the Templar. And this is a pretty sweet lockdowns, as most of the Zealots that Hrae put in there don't get to unload. And it's pretty sweet to see lockdowns being used like this. You don't see it that often, because it's pretty accurate click work. And there is another drop flying in from the front. The Corsair taking the brute force of the damage, and the shuttle's going in, but the shuttle gets focused down, and almost all the shuttles die. But also the shuttle with the Templar in it gets locked down before the Templar can unload, and the drop is successfully fought off. And the clock is ticking for Hrae, because Agarihara is just gonna keep on growing and growing and drop more tanks here in this region and get complete control over this portion of the map. So Hrae really quickly has to deal with this. He drops a Zealot, he drops another Zealot on top of the tanks, and the tanks are gonna kill each other now, and the Zealots are gonna try to do their best to kill the tanks. And yes, the tanks now doing a very good job killing all the tanks on the hill. This little Zealot took down most of the tanks by himself, but now more tanks being dropped by Agarihara on the hill. And now it's gonna be a very tough uphill battle for Hrae, because this hill gives Agarihara a huge advantage, because he can just sit tightly inside his base and very slowly add on more tanks and get complete control. He's even going for a nuke, I presume, because that ghost got dropped there on the hill, and it wouldn't be there for any other reason than for a nuke. There's a CC being constructed, which I assume he's going to add a nuke on, although he's also building it to get mining going from all these gas structures. And there is another drop going in, and a single shuttle gets locked down. 2 shuttles get locked down, and the Reaver that was inside the shuttle doesn't get the drop because the shuttle was locked down. Very unfortunate for Hrae, but Hrae manages to buy himself a little bit more time by continuously killing the tanks that Agarihara drops on the hill there. And there is another batch of tanks and units and marines being dropped on the hill. Agarihara expoing his carrier production to make sure that it doesn't die to the tanks that Agarihara is throwing up on the hill here. Also because there is pretty much no space anymore, because this entire portion here on the side is completely unsafe for Hrae. Hrae is now also building cannons on the middle, and he's got a nice gas expo here in the top corner to help him with gas income for his carrier production, adding on more stargates. There is another cybernetics core to help him get those upgrades for air going, and he almost has his interceptor capacity upgrade finished. And it really is a race against the clock, because the more tanks that are gonna come down here, the harder it will be for Hrae to fight against this tank drop push that Agarihara has been using, because he's honestly just has to sit in his base and keep dropping tanks and make anti-air for the carries, because he already knows that carries are definitely going to be showing up. So he has a bunch of Goliaths out and even 3 Valkyries, which I think will turn into more Valkyries. And there's a drop flying in from the bottom side of Agarihara's base. And this time Hrae managed to fly in all the way. And there's 4 Templars there, but most of the SCVs get pulled away. Reaver gets locked down, but he does get a really good focus down on this main CC. And the main CC quickly losing HP, but is now getting repaired. All of the regions got locked down. So he will not be able to deal enough damage to these SCVs and the CC to take down the CC, and the Zealots that were focusing down are doing so. And it's futile, because the Zealots go down, the CC gets repaired, and a very nice hold for Agarihara, who loses almost no SCVs at all because he pulled all of his SCVs away, and now more tanks are being dropped on the edges of Hrae's base. And Hrae is really feeling the heat now, because there's a very small amount of distance in between these tanks and his mineral income, and he scans it, making sure getting himself a good vision of what's there. Agarihara loading up more dropships with tanks. He's gonna drop them over the hill in just a little bit, and carriers, there's only 2 carriers actually, 5 more carriers under production for Hrae. He's gonna pile up carriers really slowly and do his best in fighting off to the tanks that Agarihara is dropping right next to his minerals, but just outside of the range of his probes. There comes another batch. And we're going to drink something. And the tanks come in. The tanks are really close. Goliaths have been dropped too, and more Goliaths are dropping in now. And the Goliath's going to take down the carriers very quickly. The carrier's losing HP rapidly, and a single carrier almost goes down. It has 8 HP left. That's truly a miracle. Units getting dropped on top of the tanks and the Goliaths, and the tanks are dying to their own tank fire. But tanks have now reached the main nexus of Hrae, and Hrae has pulled his probes to the other side of his mineral patch. But he will lose these probes. No, he managed to pull away all his probes before losing all the probes. So he has secured his mineral income, and he's going to pull his probes somewhere else, I assume to the top side corner here. And the carrier's now cleaning up the tanks, but it's too late, as he's lost his main nexus, and his income has been halted. Well, not going to say halted, but slowed down significantly. And honestly, these carriers are not doing as much work as I'd hope they do, as a lot of the interceptors are dying to the Marine Seer up on the hill, and the Valkyrie that's doing splash damage and AoE damage on the interceptors. But he does manage to take down most of the tanks. Tanks going down, and now 5 more dropships unloading units on the other side of the hill, and he locks down the carriers. He locks down all of the carriers with the ghosts that he dropped on the other side of the hill. That's some really pretty stuff going on there. And there's a single carrier that hasn't been locked down, and 3 more carriers flying in. Now there's 6 carriers locked down. It's really pretty sight to behold. And now he's dropping units on top, but both all 4 what? Oh, Jesus Christ, that's really pretty lockdown work. I've never seen such pretty lockdown work done before on a fastest map. He's locking everything down. Agarihara, please impregnate me. You are a god. That's some of the most impressive lockdown work I've ever seen done by any player ever. Locking down the shuttles that were going to drop. Oh, actually the shuttles are empty. But it doesn't make it any less impressive, because that was a really quick reaction and really quick clicking work from Agari. And Hrae is really poor now, and he has to pull his probes to the top side and secure his income, because it's going to take just a single successful push from Agari to push this all in. And there's 4 or 5 Valkyries now hanging over the hill, taking down interceptors. But the tanks that are getting dropped here on the ground, and the ghosts, the marines are getting dropped on the ground, are dying very quickly to carrier fire. The carriers in return are also taking a lot of damage to interceptors and their shields. That's a neat little thing that Valkyries do. If an interceptor that's getting focused flies back to the carrier, the Valkyrie will do damage to the carrier as the interceptor enters the carrier. So it's kind of like you're killing interceptors, but at the same time you're also dealing a little bit of damage to the carriers. And it's an interaction that I really like. Now he's splitting up his carriers to ensure that the Valkyries do the least amount of damage that they can possibly do. And Hrae is still making probes. No, they're in the top side to function as a replacement for his income. But Agarihara is a very, very dangerous enemy right now. He's just camping in his base. Though now he has to wait for dropships to be finished because he lost all of his dropships. He still has a couple of left there. And he locks down the shuttles. And a single shuttle with Templars inside it does get unloaded. And the shuttle Templar is already gone. So I couldn't see how many he killed. But he killed about 10 or 15 or so SCVs. But this is so late into the game. And Agarihara is so rich that this doesn't make a difference at all. Hey, I have been disconnected. But doesn't matter, we'll just keep on going. Agarihara now pushing out through the front, killing his own depots that were walling his base off from Hrae's units. Now killing the cannons on the middle. And pretty much pushing Hrae in completely unopposed. And a carrier gets locked down instantly by a ghost. He's now hovering his carriers over the tanks, killing the tanks in the middle quite quickly. But there is another dropships flying in under the cover of Valkyries, and the tanks are rolling in into the range of the probes, and the probes get killed. It's 23, a lot of kills. That's at least 30 or 35 probes of Hrae that went down, and Hrae is also almost completely broke. And he has a little bit of income coming in from the top side, but it's definitely not enough to sustain his interceptor production from his carriers. And Agarihara very quickly rebuilding a lot. Rebuilding a supply, and this time with Goliaths, not tanks. Because with the scans you can see that Hrae has almost no cannons inside of his base. And he knows that all he needs is just a very quick little push. And there he is throwing down lockdowns on these shuttles with Templars in them. Hrae was really planning on flying those in under the cover of interceptor fire. But the shuttles now have been rendered completely ineffective by the lockdowns. And a lot of the interceptors of Hrae's carriers are dying to the Goliath and turret and Valkyrie fire. And now there's also an attack coming in from the front. And there is a Dark Templar there helping in fighting it off. But he will need... Agarihara will throw down a scan very soon, I presume. And the carry in the front goes down. The drop doesn't get flown in. The lockdown is ended. And he would have been able to fly his shuttles in if these Valkyries weren't making complete mincemeat of these carriers. A lot of these carriers have burned through their shields and are starting to burn through their HP too. And the front now being pushed in. There is the scan. The Dark Templars are going down. The scan was quite late, but the Dark Templars eventually do go down. More Goliaths coming in. Target firing on the carriers with the help of the scan that gives him vision over the hill. So the carriers are not safe past the hill, but he does manage to fight off this wave of units from Agarihara. But Agarihara is now flying in shuttles, but the shuttles immediately die to Valkyrie fire, and there are a couple of Templars out here on the side, but he's unable to send them in. And Hrae, knowing that this is pretty much an impossible battle to win, calls the GG, leaves the game, and recognizes his superior in Agarihara. And Agarihara did exactly what Hrae couldn't do, and that is survive drops and destroy his enemy. And that was a pretty fun game to watch, and also a pretty abusive game to watch. On one side, I have to admit that the hill is very advantageous for the Terran in a situation like this. But on the other hand, Hrae also completely messed up his game plan and pretty much did no damage in the first 10 minutes whatsoever. And those first 10 minutes is exactly what a Terran needs to build up his base, because as we saw, he had a line of double turrets on the side of his base, and Hrae just kept trying to fly through that line of turrets instead of going for the frontal fly-in, where there are, as you can see, only 2 turrets. And through the entire game, those 2 turrets have remained there, and no additional turrets had been added to the front. Although the downside of flying in through the front is that it's way easier for Agarihara to target down the shuttles with Marines and Ghosts with lockdowns, as we saw in this specific game. And I honestly just want to go back and make a really pretty screenshot of all those lockdown carriers, because that is really a very memorable moment that I want to use for the thumbnail. And I just want to relive that moment really quickly, because it was just so beautiful to behold. Such a beautiful sight of pretty much the entire Psy of Hrae being locked down. I'm not entirely sure where in the game it is. I think here it is. Here the lockdown onslaught is starting. And just gotta wait for the shuttles to be added into the mix. And there, more units. And there's the boss. A bit of zoom in. And a screenshot. And thanks for watching.